Hey everyone, it's another beautiful day here in Jerusalem, and I'd like to welcome you back to my channel. So I spend way too much time on the internet having conversations with total strangers about the Israel-Palestine conflict. And sometimes I feel compelled to call out some of the often totally unhinged BS that I hear. That's what I'm going to do here today, and I am going to try to keep it informative, chilled out, and, as always, fact-based. In this episode, I'll be discussing something that's become one of those annoying talking points that the usual suspects use with predictable regularity. Namely, that 66% of Israelis are allergic to olive tree pollen. They claim that this demonstrates that the land itself is literally rejecting Israeli Jews, who are, thus, obviously not remotely native to the land. Spoiler alert, it's way more nuanced than that, and honestly, it's kind of hilarious how that statistic has been twisted. So grab some snacks, maybe some olives, if you're not allergic, and let's try to break it down. So, as I've already mentioned, the viral claim being made most often on social media is that fully 2/3 of Israeli Jews are allergic to olive tree pollen. But that's not all. For example, there's this user on X who states that 66% of Israelis are allergic to the pollen from the native olive trees, much like the immune system fighting off a virus. The land itself rejects these khazars. So, here we see the user throwing in at no extra charge the long debunked conspiracy theory about the non-local origins of most Jews, or as they call them, fake Jews. Nice. And then there's this user who confidently states that it's not just the pollen, but that 66% of Israelis are allergic to olive tree. Like, he forgot the whole pollen thing and believes that we are allergic to the trees themselves. Wow. Others point out that destroyed olive trees and high skin cancer rates are proof that Israeli Jews are not native to the land, but rather native to some almost mythical European colonial empire bereft of sun and olives run entirely by fake Jews. Here we've got the global intifada person trying to provide an academic source to justify the assertion. Writing, a study concludes that 66% of Jewish Israelis are hypersensitive to the pollen of native olive trees, compared to only 16% of Arabs in Israel. Here, another person adds, 66% of Israel's population are also allergic to olive tree indigenous to land. This tweet jokes that, won't they question why Jesus is not allergic to olive pollen, while 66% of Israelis are? This user says a 1996 study found that 66% of Jewish Israelis were allergic to olive tree pollen. Their ancestors were not from that region. Seeing a common theme here, I think? Another tweet asserts that even the land rejects them. 66% of Israelis are allergic to olive pollen, compared to just 16% of Arabs. One user asks, why do you think 66% of Jewish Israelis are hypersensitive, allergic to the pollen of native olive trees, compared to only 16% of the Palestinian population in Israel? I really wonder. This tweet notes, most Israelis are European in origin. 66% of the Jewish population in Israel are allergic to olive tree pollen, which just shows how non-indigenous they are. This tweet declares, Israel is burned down century-old olive trees. Not to forget, 66% of Israeli Jews are allergic to olive pollen. Nature always outs you, colonizers. It's poetic. Yep, absolute poetry, for sure. We have another rant here. Terrorist Israelis. Over 66% of Israelis are allergic to olive pollen. Your land, my ass. Let's keep your ass out of this, okay? This user asks, did you know that 66% of Jewish Israelis are allergic to the pollen of the native olive tree? Because they're European. Right. Here, it's claimed that 66% of Israelis are allergic to olive tree pollen. That's not their homeland, and yet, here we are. This tweet puts it all into geographic context. 66% of Israelis are allergic to Levantine olive tree pollen, compared to 14% of Palestinians. Finally, this divinely inspired post ties it to fires and sandstorms as acts of God. Okay, that was a lot, even though it really represents just a tiny sample. These posts are using the stat to push ideas like the land rejects Israeli Jews, or they can't possibly be indigenous. It's got that dramatic flair, right? Like Mother Nature herself is picking sides. But hold up, are these claims actually true? Let's get real and look at the science. The 66% number comes from a 1996 study called Hypersensitivity to Pollen of the Olea Europea in Israel by Geller Bernstein et al. They tested about 1,573 patients who already had suspected respiratory allergies in areas full of olive trees. For Jewish Israelis in those areas, 66% tested positive for olive tree pollen sensitivity. But for Israeli Arabs in similar areas, only 16%. And in places with fewer olives, it dropped to 29% for Jews. The key point that most amateur anti-Israel pundits miss is this is not the whole population. Just folks already sneezing their heads off at allergy clinics. It's like saying 66% of people at gluten-free bakery are glutards or celiac or sensitive to gluten, whatever. Not a surprise, right? They're at a gluten-free bakery for a reason. But you can't extrapolate that number to the general population because the group being studied is not representative of the general population. They're representative of people patronizing a gluten-free bakery, or in the case that is the topic of this video, people who are already suffering from respiratory allergies. Now let's fast forward to a 2024 multi-center study on allergic rhinitis in Israel. They looked at over 1,300 patients with allergic rhinitis across different regions. Olive pollen sensitivity, it was about 30 to 36% in those groups. Again, this is among people with allergies, not everyone overall. Olive pollen is indeed a big allergen in Israel, right up there with dust mites and grass, but it's not like fully 2/3 of all Jewish Israelis are popping antihistamines every spring as is claimed. And here's the fun twist. Us Jews have a super long history with olive oil, like going back thousands of years. In ancient temple worship, pure olive oil was used to light the menorah, the 7-branched candelabra in the Holy Temple or Beit HaMikdash. Olive oil symbolized light, purity, and connection to the divine. It does not represent an allergic reaction. Remember Hanukkah, the miracle where a tiny bit of olive oil lasted 8 days? Olive oil was also used for anointing kings and priests. It's all over Jewish rituals. So, if the land is supposedly rejecting us, why has olive oil been such a core part of Jewish life since, forever? Kinda debunks the whole drama, doesn't it? These posters and amateur analysts exaggerate and distort the stat to make political points, like ethnic rejection or propaganda. But science says it's about exposure, genetics, and where you live, not some cosmic nope from the dirt. As one ex-user pointed out in a great thread, it's immunology, not ancestry. They break it down super well. Check it out. So in conclusion, no, 66% of Israelis are not in fact allergic to olives, olive oil, olive trees, olive pollen, or olive anything. People who for one reason or another feel compelled to hate on Israel will latch onto any soundbite and even provide sources without actually reading, investigating, or understanding those sources because they so badly want to believe that their patently false analysis or interpretation is actually true. All right, folks, that's the scoop. Internet myths are fun, but facts are even more fun. What do you think? Ever heard of a wild claim drop it in the comments and maybe I'll make another video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and all that good stuff for more content like this. Peace out, stay curious, and stay Jewlicious. What does that even mean? Why did I say that?